Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Kelly, and this is lesson 213, Finding the Pattern. Please get this and the date written in your math notebook, and then when you're done, come on back. Okay, so the math message today says this. Each person in the United States uses about 50 gallons of water per day. Use this information to complete the table below. So here's one of those in and out tables that should look somewhat familiar because of our open response problem, but give that a look and see if you can figure out how you would complete it. Write that table in your notebook, complete it, and when you have that done, unpause the video and come back and take a look. Alright, and here's what I would say. So if I put a 2 in and I multiply it by 50, out's going to come 100. That's what the in and the out stands for. And the same would be true if I'm going to do 6 times 50. 50 times 6 is the way I would do that, and I would say 6 times 5 is 30, and then I can add that 0, and that's how I get the 300, and so on for the rest of those answers. So if you have those right, great. If not, double check yours and see what it is that you could do differently. Okay? We're going to talk about a little bit more on the next part here. Okay, so you should realize that we're looking at these as function machines, these in and out tables. That's what those are. So here's a few notes that you want to put in your notebook about function machines. So we'll see here that a number, the input, is dropped into the machine, then the machine changes the number according to the rule, and then a new number, the output, comes out the other end of the machine. You should also know there's many different types of function machines. So after you have this down, pause me while you get some notes written for yourself, because then we're going to go over the things to the left here, okay? So our problem that we did in the math message is here. So if the rule, which was already put in, was times 50, I know that the in is the amount of days. In this amount of days, if we each of those days do 50 gallons of water, then out would be 100 gallons. That's what the out is standing for in this problem, are the gallons of water, average gallons of water used. So that's written in a little different format, but still, it's still the table, in and out table. Just keep in mind that I put the 2 in, I multiplied it by 50, out would come the 100. I put the 6 in, I multiply it by 50, out's going to come the 300. If I put in a 10, multiply by 50, out's going to be 500. Okay, so this is one style that you might get, and that style is that the rule is there and the ins are there, and they want you to figure out the outs. But another type of problem would be this kind. Here's the rule, add 100, but they haven't given us the in, they've only given us the out. So think about how I would complete that. If I know that this 350 has come out this side, something went in, I added 100 to it, out came 350, what would have to go there? Hopefully you would think what has to go there is 250, right? Because 250, I'm going to write that in, it won't be pretty, sorry about that, do the best I can, nice and little. So hopefully you would see that if I put 250 in, I add 100 to it, 350 will come out. So if that's the case, what would happen with this one? What did I put in that when I added 100, I ended up with 120? Again, hopefully you would say 20 went in. 20 went in, I added 100 to it, which made 120 come out. Hopefully this pattern makes sense to you. So this is another style of this kind of a problem. I'm going to jump over here. You can go ahead and finish these when you have a minute, and then we'll take a look at them. So you might pause me and do it right now. It's up to you. Or you can wait until I've explained the different kinds and then do it. That's up to you too. So here's another one. So for this one, the rule is not listed, but you've got the in and the out. So what they're asking you to figure out is, well, what happened? Now remember, when we do these in and out tables or function machines, that it has to work for every single one of these. It can't just work for one. Like for the first one, I might say, oh, well, if 7 went in and out came 49, I added 42. Okay, so that does work for that first one, but would it work for this one? 2 plus 42, that doesn't equal 14, so I would know that can't be the rule, right? So what would work? What's another way I can go from 7 to 49? Well, because I know my math facts really well, I know 7 times 7 is 49, so it works for this one if I do times 7, then I need to try it for this one. Is 2 times 7 14? Indeed it is. Does it also work here? Check that out. If you think so, I think you know your rule. And then down here, this is yet another kind. The rule is missing. Some of the outputs and some of the inputs are missing. So this one's going to probably give us our biggest test to see if we can actually figure it out. So if you think about this right here, what am I doing to 1 to get 375 to come out? And then I'd need to be able to do something for 2 as well. And in this line that's going in order, 1875 is here. So if I say the rule is times 375, $3.75, do you think that would work here? What's that going to equal? And then if you think, well, that could work. So 375, and I could just do the quick 375 plus 375, right? Because that's 375 times 2, which is this in. So if in came a 2, and I'm multiplying it times 375, that's what this looks like, right? So if I do that math, 750. So if I do 750 here, and you can imagine I have a dollar sign in the front of that, right, because it's dollars, what would make sense for it to be 1875? I think I could add 750 and 750. That's going to get me to $15. And then is there a way to get from that to 1875? I think there is. So I think we might be on to something with that. So complete those, and when pause the video, complete them, and then we'll talk about it again. So we are going to discuss all those answers in class when I have a quick second to talk to you about it. So keep that in mind. But the next thing you're going to do once you have that page complete is you're going to look at this page, the What's My Rule? This is in your math journal, page 63, and it's going to give you some more practice with what we were just up to. So if you don't have the last one completed, pause on that one for now and move on to this one. Let's work on this What's My Rule page. Okay? So complete the What's My Rule tables and explain the patterns you find. So you can see that on this one, you already have your rule and you have your outs. Sounds very similar to that type 2 that we were looking at a minute ago. This one, you have your rule and you have most of your ins. You need just to do the outs. And then it's also asking you to make sure you're able to observe some patterns that you see. From the in to the out, what's a pattern? Or from out to out, what's a pattern? Take a look and see if you can find patterns in the columns or patterns in the rows. That's what we're looking for you to describe here. This one is similar to that last problem, except for this one gave us the rule, but it's missing some of the ins and some of the outs. And then this one you get to create your own, so have some fun with that. All right? When you think you have this page all set, come back and check it against the answers which are on the next page. Obviously, we can't give you the answer to this one because you got to make up your own, but let's take a look at the others. So hopefully you can see that if I'm multiplying by 5 and my out was 25, what times 5 is 25? It's 5. And so on for each of these problems. And then when I look at the patterns that I might see here, I can say that when I multiply even numbers times 5, I end up with even products or answers. When I multiply odd numbers times 5, I end up with odd products or answers in a multiplication problem. That's what that word product means, right? Do you notice that? Do you think that's interesting? Yeah, it's something to keep in mind. If you have a different pattern, you're probably fine, but why don't you jot this one down too? It's important to keep a lot of different patterns in your mind. And then this one, you multiply by 2 and add 1. So when 2 went in, they gave you this one. Multiply by 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. If 5 goes in, you multiply by 2, that's 10. Add 1, and that's 11. And that would work for each of these. And for this one, a pattern that we noticed was that all of the outputs are odd numbers. Now, would that make sense when you're multiplying by 2 and then adding 1? Adding that 1's going to make it an odd number, isn't it? So that's an interesting pattern to make sure you see. And then for this one, 12 inches in a foot is the rule. Keep that in mind. So if I've got 3 in, do I think I have 3 feet coming in? And I multiply those 3 times 12, I'm going to get 36. 5 in times 12, going to get me that 60. Okay, hopefully you were able to figure these out. And then I wonder if you saw that all of the outputs are even numbers. So I'm multiplying by 12, which is an even number. Are you surprised that all of the outputs are even numbers as well? I hope not. I hope you're getting an odd times an even is going to be an even. An even times an even is going to be an even. But an odd times an odd is odd. Okay, and I hope you had fun with this. So once that's done, I want to also talk about this. So we can do that with numbers. We can notice those patterns with numbers. Can we do the same thing with shapes? And indeed the answer is yes, you certainly can do it with shapes. So it's telling you here to use your geometry template. Now, if you didn't bring yours, you're okay with that. Just go ahead and try and freehand it. But it says to draw the shapes that continue each pattern on the blank lines below. Okay, so I'm reading right here. And if I see this, I've got triangle, square, rhombus, or trapezoid rather, trapezoid, triangle, square, trapezoid. What's going to come next? Hopefully you can find that pattern. Do the same with this one, and then study this pattern. Some of these are quite tricky. See if you can figure out what's going on. Really push yourself. It has to work each time. It can't just work one time. Each time. It's the same as an in and out table, but now with shapes. So also make sure you're really pushing yourself to notice the patterns. And then it goes on to ask you more about this one. So you're going to fill in 5, but what would 6 be? And then what would be the 10th one? How can you figure that out without having to draw them all out? Well, if you really study the pattern, you should be able to figure that out. All right? And then you can make your own shape pattern and a rule. So that's what you're up to on this page. When you get that complete, come back and check it out. And here is what we find out. So take a look at this. If any of these answers are not your answers, cross yours off and fill them in, and then plan to talk to me about the answers you missed in class so we can make sure that you really do understand it. All that's left is that home link, so go ahead and complete that. When you think you have it done, you can come back and check your answers on the next bit, or you can check them on the other slide. And there are those answers. So do that, do your fraction, then your percent to figure out whether you're coming to the lesson to see me. All right, have a good one.